Charlottesville for Today y Mañana on the I Love CVille Network. How are you doing, Xavier?
I'm doing fantastic. Yourself?
Doing well. Enjoying definitely the fall colors, fall weather.
Yeah, no, it's stunning. I mean, I drove last week to Waynesboro and just going over those mountains. It was like a rug. I mean, it's just beautiful. A menagerie of colors. It's stunning, beautiful.
Absolutely, no, it must be gorgeous.
You got to get there before the next rain because it's drying up, and one rain forward wind, they're gone.
I know they're gonna be gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, once they hit that kind of beautiful golden colors, they don't sometimes last too long.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know some trees unfortunately already kind of lost theirs.
Well, it's funny how some trees they lose it on top and then the bottom's still there. Mm-hmm. Of course, when you look at it on a mountaintop, then you just don't see it yet. But once you get enough of them that have lost all their tops, it starts looking a little strange.
Exactly. Exactly.
The top's brown, the bottom is colorful.
That's what happens. That's the fall. It's beautiful but fleeting.
Exactly.
And winter comes before you know it. But we have a fantastic show.
Yeah, we do.
Today. I'm very excited for today's show. We're going to be joined shortly on the show by Trisha Driddle. She is the owner of Baby Bridge, followed by Trisha Del Sorbo Pape from the Central Virginia Canine Academy. And last but not least, we'll be welcoming back Pastor David Ford from Mission Charlottesville, fresh back
from Cuba.
I know. From Cuba, just on Sunday, I believe.
To see what he says.
So we look forward to hearing about that.
Absolutely.
Definitely a subject near and dear.
Three great guests and exciting.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to see what's in store. You always learn so much with all the guests we have. Sometimes I look, it's like, I wonder what they do, and it's like then it's amazing as to what it is that they do, and it's the spirit of entrepreneurs, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just that combination of experience, expertise, passion. So we
passion in
it's
particular.
What we love.
Yeah,
it's what we love on Today and Mañana.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us this morning on another bright and beautiful morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia. A fall morning, to be sure, but that's just another excuse.
To have what?
Café
con leche. Absolutely.
Get your café con leche, get into your cozy spot, sit down, and enjoy Today y Mañana, either by watching us. We're on Facebook Live right now. We're live on YouTube. Be sure to like and share. Let all your friends know.
I was going to say that.
I beat you to it.
I was thinking, he's not going to say that today, maybe. He'll forget. I'll say it.
I remembered. But that doesn't mean you can't say it later on. We'll give you little hints later in the show to say that.
In the show, I'll try to remember.
You can also, of course, listen to us. I know some of our users are eventually going to be listening to us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, and across the numerous channels that we have on the I Love CVille Network.
Amazing. Wow.
So a big thank you, of course. Love being here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you to Emergent Financial Services for presenting us. And, of course, thank you to our partners at Castle Hill Cider, at the Gym CVille, our friends at Aqua CVille, Hand Car Wash, Credit Sirius Insurance, and, of course, always Ford Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So we have a lot in store today.
We certainly do.
We have a trifecta of fantastic guests that will be joining us. I pulled that new word there. Threw you for a loop there. We're going to be joined.
Just assume I didn't know what that meant. Is that what I'm trying to say by
it was a test. It was a vocabulary test. It was your vocabulary test.
The only reason I know that word, that's not true, but the only reason I know that word is your mom was watching a cooking show, and it was Louisiana or something, and they kept talking about the trifecta, and about three things that they chop up, which I think is peppers, onions, and I forget what the other one is, but I think it's Trinity.
I think it's called
Close
Trinity.
Enough. Three. I got the three right. Trifecta, Trinity. It's all about three.
You remember that TRI was three.
There you are.
We're good. I love Nick in the background. The chef is like, it's not the trifecta.
Yeah, I know, really. He had to say that,
He had to jump in.
I had it all going perfectly.
He had to jump in. We're going to be joined very shortly on the show by Trisha Driddle. She's the owner of Baby Bridge. followed by Tricia Del Sorbo Pape, the owner of Central Virginia Canine Academy, and then last but not least this morning by Pastor David Ford, returning from Mission Charlottesville, returning from his trip to Cuba.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn a lot about that. A couple
Absolutely.
shout outs. Thank you, John Blair, for watching the show this morning. Thank you, of course, Lacerbi, always watching the show. Thank you, Taravella Vincenzo from Italy, watching the show this morning. Thank you. So always appreciate our international viewers.
Buongiorno.
Say again?
Buongiorno.
Oh, buongiorno.
Although it's probably
Buongiorno.
afternoon by now over there.
Yeah,
For us.
there would probably be already afternoon. But we can still say a buongiorno.
Absolutely.
Buenos dias to all our friends here in Charlottesville as well. And I'm very excited for today. I say we just jump right on into it.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely.
Same here, same here. So we're really excited to welcome to the show this morning Tricia Doodle. She is the owner of Baby Bridge. Tricia, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tricia.
Thanks for
Glad to
coming
be
on
here.
today. And we're really glad to have you on. So for those who aren't familiar with you, haven't met you before, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to start Baby Bridge.
Yeah, I have a very roller coastery journey here, but I am a mother of two, and during that early baby time when they were little, I had a wonderful community around me, and I was still feeling a lack of support. And so I internalized that at the time as self-judgment and shame. And years later, I was working in software development, and that's sort of my background, is that software piece. And I started having this idea that what if we had a way to help beyond meals, because there's so many wonderful applications out there that help people to sign up for when you have a baby, you have a registry, and when you have a baby, you often get a meal train or something like that. But I was like, what if we could just let people know that it's okay to ask for more? And for me, what I really wanted was somebody to come and wash the window next to my nursery, and I didn't feel comfortable asking people, but this idea just sort of lodged in my head. And then years later, I had an opportunity during COVID, actually, that a lot of my contract work dried up, and I had some time, and I was like, I'm going to actually try to make this for people. So then I did, and I launched it early this year, actually.
Wow,
That's amazing. That's
perfect.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when I was young, I was working in the bomb business, and one of the salespeople was a female, and she got pregnant, and she had a baby. And I called her up, after a few days, and I, to see how she was doing and whatever. And she goes, Xavier, she goes, I'm just so nervous. She goes, I go to the hospital, I have this baby, within hours, they send me home with this thing. She goes, they didn't even give me instructions. It's like, I don't have any instructions. What do I do with this thing? And I'm saying, calm down. I'm sure there's somebody in your family that can help you. But, there you are. I mean, the anxiety, and all of a sudden you have this little one that you have to take care of, and everything else around you, has to be challenging.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, what is Baby Bridge? How does it work? What do people expect when they encounter it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like, I describe it as meal train on steroids. So when people sign up and create a bridge, it's free to use and free to sign up. That is very important to me, that it remain free. And so people create the bridge and they specify, like, I know I'm going in for a C-section, so I know I'm not going to be able to walk my dog for the first week. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I would love somebody to walk my dog for the first few weeks or so, however long. And you can specify advanced requests in the same way that you would when you create a meal train or other thing like that. But what makes it really special is that once it's activated, you pick the date when that happens. So once it's activated, then you start receiving check-in emails. And it starts with this very simple question, how are you doing? Because in that phase, a lot of people aren't being asked that. It's like, how is the baby doing? And so I think it's really important to take that very brief moment just to reflect, like, how are you doing? And just click an emoji. It's very simple. And then will prompt, it has a few other questions each week of like what can be supportive, and you can just check the box. So I tried to make it to where you don't have to come up with things.
Right.
So we've got like lawn care, dog walking, housekeeping, all these different things that you can choose from. And then what people really love is the ability to upload photos of the baby and give like a little snippet
yeah, a
of
little-
like, oh, you know, breastfeeding's going really well, but I'm kind of going insane, you know, that kind of thing that people can get. And then that creates this dynamic sign-up list. And so it's almost like this registry that's changing every week. And your support group, your support community that you specified can get that information on the website. And they can sign up to provide it themselves. And we have several options that are available for purchase. So we have out-of-town families that want to support people and they want to be there. So now they can pay and they can say, I'm going to pay to get your house cleaned, and we handle all the logistics and coordination and
I
work
gotcha.
with trusted vendors to get those things taken care of. So,
Well, that's
yeah.
really helpful. I mean,
That's extremely helpful
Yeah.
because that's the whole thing, right? In other words, a mother's taking care of the baby, right? And you know, babies they're up at different hours, and you don't get enough sleep. You're tired, and everything else, you know, is like you feel like the burden is like I have to get this done, I have to get
Overwhelming.
that done. It's overwhelming. So to have that assistance, to be able to say I have not, you know, I have this opportunity now to have somebody come and help in one way or another is great.
That is.
Yeah.
When I love the idea that you're kind of prompting a little bit, but it's, I think so many times in human nature, right? You say, "Oh, well, what do you need help with?" And you just blank. You're like,
There's so much you say nothing.
There's so much you end up saying nothing. You're like, "Oh no, I can do that, or I can do that myself, or maybe I'll eventually get to that." But to be like, "Do you need help with this?" Yes. Do you need help with it? Probably. So just sort of, I guess, do you find that a lot? It's sort of there to prompt people to really, especially moms, to open up about what they actually need help with.
Yeah, I mean, we take on so much in our society, and we have a lot of perks in the world that we live in. But I think one of the pitfalls of losing the village is this idea that we are independent, and that's our measure of success, right? It's like we're a fully independent little nuclear family, and you know, not everyone is even in a nuclear family. So the families are so different, and so we have to come to this place of acknowledgement of where we are and how do we bridge that gap in the care. And so that's where Baby Bridge comes in, to try to streamline all of that, because I know people too that have a lot of support and they have like 10 text messages saying let me know how I can help, but like it's really exhausting to go through all of those and then
Exactly.
be like, oh well, Cora needs picked up from preschool this week, but who was it that offered to help me with that?
Right,
And so
right.
now you can just like put it in the platform and whoever's available can do it. And so it's this idea of asking freely and receiving freely, and just understanding that people really want to help you during that time. I think that is a really hard thing. And then you don't even have to actually ask for anything. You can just give updates, and people really love that feature.
To do, yep, absolutely. Well, it builds the connection of saying,
Yeah, and
yes,
that's
you
the
know,
bridge. That's the bridge, right? To connect to people and be able to say, you know, things are going fine, but then all of a sudden, boom, there's something you didn't even think about that you need help with, and there it is. You know, the support is there, right?
They're already kind of connected because they've been
Exactly,
getting updates.
exactly.
So when you do have the ask of like,
Yeah.
hey, this came up, there's a bunch of people who are saying, well, I've been getting baby pictures for the last week. I can help in this
So
way.
is
or
this
that
so
way.
is this an app that goes on your phone, basically?
It's a mobile site now. Well, it's a website that is mobile friendly
Okay,
right now.
okay.
So eventually, hopefully someday there will be an app, but for now it's a web app.
It's a web app. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you just go in there. Do you have to log in, or how does that work?
You don't have to log in to provide support. To create a bridge, you have to log in.
Okay, okay. So you create your own kind of account.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that also means that, like, if I'm working at a church and I want to create a bunch of these, or if I'm working for an employee resource group and I want to create a bunch, I can go in and under my account, I can see all the ones that I've created at once. So I
Okay.
don't have to have a different login or a different passcode for each one.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So each baby can have its own baby bridge
Yeah, yeah.
without creating a new one. And that's so now is there security incentive? Can you control who connects to your baby bridge? Like, do you choose who to invite to get updates and
So
make
right now,
offers?
it's simply controlled by the specific URL. And so it's anybody can see it if they have that URL,
But you
but
would only
you
send.
can't search and find it. You have to be invited or you have to have that specific URL. So we wanted it to be easy for people to share on Facebook and say,
course.
go ahead and follow my bridge. And if you follow it, then you get the email updates. And so if you input those people when you create it, they automatically get the
Get
email
to follow.
updates.
Fantastic. That's
So,
awesome.
so let's say, so I can understand this right. Obviously, as a new mom, you create an account, right? Is that correct?
So it
is
doesn't have to be the parent. It could be somebody in their network creates it for them.
Okay, okay. And how about somebody that is willing to help all the time? And it's like, I'm available all the time, and I'd like to help anybody that needs help. Does that work, or how does that work?
You mean like a volunteer?
Volunteers, yes.
Yeah. Someday, I hope to.
Okay.
There's a lot of really great organizations that do similar things. So at this point, we're at least a year off from being able to incorporate that. But I know that shout out to Helping Hands, they're based out of Richmond, and they have similar service, and they're
Okay.
a nonprofit, and they do this kind of volunteer piece. But I would love to incorporate that because, like, I know that there was a lot of women in my Bible study that their children didn't live in town, and their children are all grown up, and they love babies, and so they were happy to come by and visit me. And so if it was in that situation, I would have just added them to my bridge. But I would love the opportunity to be able to incorporate volunteers into it, and then you'd have to be able to choose, like, I want the volunteers or I don't want the
don't.
Right,
volunteers.
exactly. Yeah. It's a different. You open up a different can of worms, but
Yeah.
there are
There's a lot
there are
more
those.
legal stuff when you start
Yeah,
sending
do-
it
Okay.
to people.
Absolutely.
There's always illegal stuff. There's always illegal.
yeah.
Absolutely, but I really liked what you said, which I think is kind of a perfect encapsulation. I think it used to be in kind of the village way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
You know, you used to have grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins.
Exactly.
Sometimes you'd even be living in the same house. And so of course, someone has a baby, there's an entire extended
Right.
family who's there dedicated to making sure that that the baby's okay, that the mom's okay, that things are taken care of in the house. But now you're kind of it's just the two of us in this house. Maybe cousin lives 100 miles away. Maybe mom and dad live 200 miles away. Or maybe they're in a different house down the street and they want to help, but you got to be able to connect to people
Yeah.
in that way because they're not all living in the same house anymore. So it kind of recreates the village mindset using the technology that's available to us today.
Right.
That's fantastic.
No, it really is.
So before I let you go, for all those new moms out there or expecting mothers, where can people find the website, the app to really get started?
Yeah, so it's really easy. It's all babybridge.app.
Babybridge
All of the social media handles are Babybridge app. I will tell you that we aren't active on social media, so we have a page, but we don't really post right now. But we do have an email list where we send out a lot of good tips and different things, and you can find all of that at babybridge.app is the website.
Babybridge.app. That
Wow,
is
okay.
fantastic. So be sure to check it out. I'll stick it into mine at least. The comment section of my page that's streaming live here. So babybridge.app. Very easy to find.
Absolutely.
Very easy to use.
Baby-
They're just so
Easy to remember too. Baby
easy
Bridge,
to remember. And so we definitely would encourage whether you're a new mom or a friend of a new mom who could really use your help, be sure to check it out. And thank you so much for the work you put into it and doing this.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thanks for
Appreciate
coming
it.
on,
Be here.
Tricia. All righty, so we're gonna do our little
Interesting.
first
I
little
mean,
spot.
I
See,
would
like
have never
you
thought
said,
of
you
that.
learn
No,
something
absolutely.
new every day. Just the ingenuity to come up with
Yeah.
that, and then obviously the software still to know how to actually
Well,
make it.
we live in a time where technology has also opened up opportunities, right? And here's a situation where that technology really helps people, and to think about it though, to say, hey, wait a minute, I went through this. How do I help others? and Trish just put it all together. And that was great.
That is fantastic. Shout out, thank you, Bill McChesney, for watching the show this morning. Definitely got a lot of viewers chiming in here. And so we're excited from one great guest to another.
From one great Trish to another.
Katie Jacobson, got to say thank you for watching the show this morning. She's liking the show this morning. From one great guest to another, we are excited to welcome to the show Tricia Del Sorbo Pape, the owner of Central Virginia Canine Academy. Tricia, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to have you here. So for those who don't know you, aren't familiar yet, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started Central Virginia Canine Academy.
So I moved here from New York.
New York, okay.
Yeah.
Familiar with that
Fellow
spot.
New Yorker there.
Oh, yeah? And then bought a house, had a baby, and I was doing really things to better my business, better myself. I was getting more certifications and really focusing on that. And then in 2020, in January, I finally gained enough courage to launch my business. And by March, COVID happened.
So growing up,
We've heard this story
Very
before,
familiar
haven't we?
story.
Yeah, very familiar story. And so we got through that, and we're back. Central Virginia is a positive reinforcement dog training company, and we are certified. We have 3 different certifications, the CPDT, Knowledge Assessed. I have my Fear Free certification, as well as my CSAT, which is my certification in separation anxiety.
okay.
Yeah, we were talking about that because I was talking to Trish before, and it's like, I remember once there was a show, and this dog, it's like every time the owners would leave, it would just constantly cry. It would cry all day. And I don't remember what the person did, but Trish was explaining to me, and hopefully she does also, how that works and why that dog does that. And it's not behavioral, but maybe you can tell us a little bit about what happens in that situation.
Sure. So when a dog truly has, and separation anxiety is used as a umbrella term, right? There are many different behaviors that fall under separation anxiety: isolation distress, separation anxiety. But separation anxiety is actually a physical disorder. It is a chemical imbalance, and so it needs to be very carefully collaborated with your vet. And so whenever I take on a separation anxiety client, I really like to have a nice basis with their veterinarian so that we can talk through the actual process.
That's fantastic. So, and I think the certification, I remember I was looking up a little bit on your website, the certification is key because I know there's a lot of, there's such a proliferation of dog trainers, doggy daycare, things like that. And it's important to make sure you find someone who has those kinds of certifications that actually has experience in this realm.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, the dog training field is not regulated. And so you could just start your own dog training company and say, hey, I've been training dogs for 10 years. I know what I'm doing. Or I've owned your dog for 10 years. I know exactly what I'm doing. And so by finding a certified trainer, you know that you're finding somebody who has already tested their knowledge, but not only that, but that they are upstanding to a ethical code. That's what a lot of these certifications really enhance, is their ethics and their continued education. These are not certifications that you get it once and you're done. Every year you have to,
Gotcha.
have your educational credits to keep your certifications.
Well, that's important. So you're basically keeping up with whatever's coming out and new I guess,
Exactly.
new developments that can
New
help,
best
right?
practices that are out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so forth. And that's really key, the ethical part. Because the number one thing, granted, when you want your dog to be trained, right? Obviously, part of it is that there's a result you want, right? You want to treat whether they have the separation anxiety or whether you want to be trained a certain way. But the number one thing is I want to make sure that my dog is treated well. That I want to make sure that my dog is treated ethically, kindly.
Exactly.
And that's such a key thing to know that, all right, this person has consistently demonstrated over time that the code of ethics that are important. Our business even has a code of ethics, and we're in finance. Just to know that someone has done that consistently over time.
Absolutely. And I think the key word here is safe. Make that dog feel safe.
Absolutely.
So, because think about it, a dog is really, to most people, part of their family, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what you want. You want to make sure it's being taken care of properly, not that you treat it as, an animal of some sort that you just, if it misbehaves, you hit it or whatever it may do. You want to make sure you treat it with gentleness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's key. So what are some of the services that people will come to you for? What are some of the types of the training or things that people will approach the Canine Academy for?
Most of my clients approach me because they're having some sort of struggle at home, whether it be aggression or fear, or just simple puppy stuff. You know, that can be overwhelming as well.
Yep.
And so my focus with my company is really the companion animal training and just helping families adjust to their dog and helping their dog adjust to their family, you know.
Which is key.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
so important.
I remember so we had I always say puppy because it was a Westie, so it always looked like a puppy.
He was always small.
Yeah. But we took him to training once, and the most important thing was always try to make sure, because Westies are one of these, they're like hunters, so they see something move, even if it's a leaf, they're off, right? And so the idea was that we lived in an open space. It's like if he's off, I mean, it's like
I'm not catching him.
yeah,
Right?
I'm not catching him.
We
Who's
can
going to
run
catch
after
him?
him, but
That's
we're
right.
not going to catch
So
up to him. It was
to
too
be able
fast.
to basically say, Chester, stop, and it was just incredible because we trained him to do that so that if you said that, he would stop, assuming he heard you if he was close enough at that point. But I suspect that those are some of the things that dogs can be trained for, in a sense, to make sure that they listen to you per se.
Absolutely, and it's for me and my company. It's less about your dog listening to you and being obedient and doing the things that you want it to do, and more about having the dog want to make those choices.
Yeah.
Right? And so the more you reinforce, the more you reward the good behaviors that you're seeing, the more your dog is going to choose to do those behaviors. And so it's really coming to get everybody kind of on board with that thought, where if you reward your dog for the good behaviors that you want to see, you'll see more of it. If you want your dog to recall, practice recall, right? If you want your dog to stay, practice stay. But with all of that in mind, is your dog feeling safe enough to learn? That is my main concern.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, other specific canines that are much more difficult to train than others?
Breed specific?
Yeah.
They're all different, and they all come with hardships, and some are easier than others, but I can't think of any specific breed. It really comes down to the individual dog.
Okay.
Because they really do have all their own little personalities.
Yeah.
They really do.
They're each different in their own way.
Yep.
You can have one the same breed.
Yeah,
but you
because
have one
terriers,
totally different.
Terriers and versus like Liza, they're just, their personalities are just so different, and so I just wonder if it's harder to train one versus the other.
No, I mean, it does come down to nature versus nurture. Some of these
Okay.
behaviors we will see could be genetic. Some of them are breed-specific behaviors. But overall, you kind of have to look at the whole and not just one specific thing. Like, I would hate if somebody says, oh, I can't train my beagle because beagles are notoriously hard to train. Well, that's not true.
Exactly. It's doing the right. Well, and it's true because I hear that all the time. The one thing that bothers me the most is when people will say, oh, I don't allow pit bulls in here because pit bulls are mean. And I'm like, no, pit bulls don't would come out of the little, the little mother's womb and say, oh, I'm going to be a mean dog my whole life.
Right.
Like, pit bulls are mean because their owners have made them mean by not treating them appropriately, but sometimes,
Or train them to be mean.
Or training them to be mean. In other words, we get these stereotypes of certain breeds, but I think it's just a matter of certain people who have owned those breeds have not behaved, or didn't know how to train them appropriately, didn't know how to raise them appropriately. It's not like they're born with a predisposition to be mean.
No, that's not true.
Oh, they are?
See?
No. I don't mean no, I'm not going with pit bulls.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that there are multiple sides to the coin. So just because you have an owner that treats his dog badly doesn't mean that dog is going to be aggressive.
Okay.
Right? Or it doesn't mean that just because you have the best family in the world, your dog is not going to develop behavioral problems. So they're not exactly
I see what
they're
you're
not
saying,
exactly
yeah.
correlated in that way, right? Because
Got it.
there
Oh,
are
I see
too
what you're
many
saying.
variables to
Yeah,
take
there's
into
a lot that goes
consideration.
into it.
So yeah, so it's not. You can't look at a bad pit and be like, oh, his owner made him that way.
Okay, got it.
You know what
got
I'm saying? Like,
There's
it's
a lot
not
that
true.
goes
There's
into
a
it.
lot that goes into that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you work with a lot of people that they've had their dogs that they get, as a puppy and kind of growing that way, or do they a lot of times we'll get them from an ASPCA and they have to work through, the dog's previous life, or is it a mix?
It's a mix.
What do you say?
Yeah, I got a big mix. I have a lot of puppies right now, and a lot of the dogs that I'm seeing really were puppies that grew up during COVID, and now that the world is kind of opening up again, they're having a lot of struggles, adapting.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing a lot more separation anxiety, a lot more reactivity, a lot more fear-based behaviors, and so I'm really trying to just help.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see that
know
happening,
about
right?
that.
Because during COVID, everybody stayed home. Get a puppy, everybody's always home. Puppy sees that everybody's home, and then all of a sudden, the world
And they
begins
grow up
again.
that way. They don't know any better. They don't know any differently.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, everybody leaves. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
where'd everybody go?
Yeah.
Are they coming back?
Or all of a sudden they go for a walk and there are bikers and dogs and
Yeah.
people outside.
All these things
and,
they've
True,
never seen
true.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's true. That's a lot. That's a lot.
it's hard.
We got a comment here. Jackie Matola says, Bartok says hi.
Aw, hi Bartok.
And also got some lights here watching the show. Tarly Jane watching the show. OD Fury watching the show. Dan Jensen,
Aw.
Jackie Matola, thank you for watching the show. She's got a lot of fans here
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
watching this morning, to be sure.
Well, I mean, I would say that 90% of the world is dog lover, right? I mean, there's something about dogs that they just...
You're saying that as a dog lover, of course.
Yeah, I mean, of course, big time. I mean, I love them, and they seem to love me
you.
too. But the issue is that it's one of those, you go home, and that dog always runs to the door. It's the first one there to say hello is your puppy, right? It's unconditional love. It's just incredible, right? So it's hard not to love them back.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, you are their whole world.
Yeah, you are. Exactly.
It
So
really
you got to
is.
treat them well, and as Trish said, when you train them, you got to train them with love, right?
Yeah.
And respect.
Yeah, treat them the right way.
Exactly.
Right way.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So as a follow-up question there, what are some common things you'd recommend, at least even before people begin to approach you, like common ways you bring home a new dog, some basic things that you should be thinking about,
I guess on the broad scale, you want to set up your village, and I know that Trisha used that
about the
word
village,
in the segment before, but that's really what it's about. So your vet, make sure you find a good vet. Your trainer, make sure you do your research on your trainer. If you're going to use doggy daycare, make sure you do your research into that. Your dog sitters, your family and friends, build up a network of people that can help you, because you never know when you're going to need it. And you just want to have that network available to you. Also, I guess another recommendation I would have is just take things slow. You don't have to have all the answers.
It's like, in many ways, it's not exactly like having a new child, but they're a
It
family
is.
member,
It's
and they
very,
need to.
very
It's similar.
Very similar.
Absolutely, yeah. They have to feel. I mean, you got to treat them well. They got to feel part of the family. They got to grow with you because, again, that's the. I mean, I remember when we got Chester all the way home. I mean, he literally was crying in the car the minute Jan, would put her hand inside his little, cage or whatever you call it. I forget what it is. Kennel. Looked like a cage. Kennel. He'd stop crying, and it's just that connection with somebody
touch, yeah.
just
Comfort.
calmed him down.
Yeah.
And he was like, just 6 weeks old, and it was just incredible how. And then when he got home right away for the kids, he just sat down next to the little kids, my boys, and that was it. It's like he knew that they were younger, that's who he wanted to connect with. They're amazing.
Yeah.
No, they really are. They sense, and he knew who was. He could even identify like who he thought was alpha. Right, just he would come home and like all out kissing. My poor mom would come home and be like, "How could you leave me? How could you not feed me for these days?" I was like, she was like, "That's not fair. That's not fair." Your father comes home and then he knew who was baby. He knew who was the youngest son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So they
definitely.
sense little things like that, and it's important just to be aware of how the
Oh, they are
dog. 'cause-
so much smarter than we give them credit
Yep.
for.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They're watching everything you do.
And they understand. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, you talk to them, they understand. And yet when they bark to you, it's like, what are you saying again? Could you repeat that, please?
Right?
So
absolutely.
they're amazing animals.
They really are. They really are. So for people who want to get in touch with you, want to connect, learn more, hire you, of course. Where's the best way to get in touch with you? Ways to find out where do people find you?
You can text my cell, which should
You
I give
can.
my-
You certainly
okay.
can.
917-865-7152. You can email me at cvcanineacademy@gmail.com, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Facebook and Instagram, it's CV Canine Academy, and YouTube is Central Virginia Canine Academy.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
super easy, super easy. So
Absolutely.
CV Canine Academy on Facebook and Instagram, Central Virginia Canine Academy on YouTube, and then just do the cell phone number one more time.
917-865-7152.
Fantastic. So we
You,
really
you didn't memorize that number.
What?
You didn't memorize the number. All the other stuff, he was easy.
Yeah,
I,
great.
I
Yeah,
noticed
the number is harder to memorize.
the
The number is harder to memorize. I'm not going to try to repeat the number. I figure once we do the sizzle reels, we'll put out the sizzle reel one
There you
that
are.
has the number so that people can call. But Trisha, really, I've learned so much.
Absolutely.
So much that I didn't even know about how just.
No,
how
me
dogs
too. I
work
mean, like I
and
said, I
how-
was talking before the show. It's like, wow. I mean, I learned so much even before that. It's amazing.
Definitely been fantastic. So thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
coming.
having
Thank you so
me.
much, Trish.
Thank
No,
you,
thank
guys.
you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah,
It's,
just-
it's nice. It's
and
nice
it's
to
why
have.
it's so important because
Yeah.
you've got that expertise.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's a reason. They're not just certifications aren't just a bunch of letters
No,
that
no, it
go
isn't.
after a
No, it
name
isn't.
or after a
Exactly.
business. It
Yeah.
shows time that was put in, effort that was put in, knowledge that has been acquired,
Right.
and then you can see it because here I am, I'm like, I said, well, not really, So, but you learn
Yeah.
new things.
Yeah.
from
Well,
experts like that.
they're special beings, right? And they have needs, and it's nice to have people that really understand them and that can help them, and help
Absolutely.
families at the same time, because it's that village, it's that unity.
It's
Yeah.
the family. Absolutely, absolutely.
And speaking of
Rachel,
villages,
Speaking of villages, we are very happy to welcome back to the show. He is Tom Ford, but this is our second
Yes.
time, of course, our friend Pastor David Ford. He is with Mission Charlottesville. Pastor David, thanks so much for joining us
Welcome
this morning.
back.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Xavier. Good to be back with you.
We're very
And,
excited to have you
and welcome back in more than one way. I mean, he
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
flew back from Cuba on Sunday, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Sunday.
Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, Sunday. Right. So, like I say to you and to your listeners this morning, Dios te bendiga.
Ah, gracias. Muchas
Muchísimas
gracias.
gracias. Igualmente. Igualmente.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much. No, I just want to give you a quick chance for any new audience members. It's been a little bit since we had you on. Give
Yeah.
us just a quick snapshot on Mission Charlottesville, so that people have an idea
Sure.
of where you're from, and then we can dive right into
Sure.
to the trip to Cuba.
Yeah. Mission Charlottesville. We are a church here in the Charlottesville area. We actually are 4 years old now as a worshiping community, worshiping and serving community. And earlier this year, we became a member congregation of the new Global Methodist Church, which is just started this year.
Okay.
May
Congratulations.
May 1st to be exact.
Congratulations.
So it's new too. So we're a member congregation of the Global Methodist Church.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
And so, I mean, I know last time we had you on, of course, we talked a great deal about Cuba because Bob Aller he had returned from Cuba and
Yeah.
he had some beautiful
Exactly.
paintings
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And we had talked a little about that you might be going on a trip yourself. So what sort of led to, give us sort of the background of the trip to Cuba, what led you to Cuba this time?
Yeah, for this
On
time.
this trip, yes.
Yeah. Well, I have a deep love for the people of Cuba and the church there in Cuba. This was my 9th trip to Cuba.
Wow.
And have a commitment to do what I can to encourage and help support the church there. And in particular, when I go down, I work closely in conjunction with the Methodist Church of Cuba, and go with a ministry based out of Georgia called Rick Bonfim Ministries. He is actually a Methodist evangelist, and he has a close working relationship with Bishop Ricardo Pereira, who is the bishop of the Methodist Church of Cuba.
In Cuba.
See? Yes.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
what are some of? So, tell us a little bit about the trip. I
Tell
mean,
us a little about the
what-
trip and
what stood
how
out to
things
you,
are
how
in
things are.
Cuba. Yeah.
I think I would describe it as bittersweet. Bittersweet. It was great to go. Of course, hadn't been there since 2019, and pandemic, putting
Right,
brakes on
right.
that. And things have opened up, and we're able to go back. And so with this particular trip, I say it's bittersweet. It was great to reconnect with people that I've actually known for a number of years now. I've been going down there. This year would be basically a decade. First trip was 2012.
Wow. Okay.
And gotten to know people, and so we're catching up where we left off. And so with this trip, when I say bittersweet, great to see folks and to meet new folks, pastors and congregations down there, establish relationship with them. And so that's the sweet part. The bitter part is this. On this particular trip, the conditions there are as desperate as I have ever seen them.
In
in an
that
economic
area,
sense, in a spiritual sense, or
Economic sense and nationally desperate. And, this time it came across clearly, not that I was trying to pull the information out of people, but it just kind of came forth in that in some ways the nation is divided. There are those who are committed to communism, and then those who want a change in the government. They want a new form of government. So that came through.
right.
The economic conditions are very, very desperate. Oh my goodness, the supply chain issues, if you think they're affecting us, they're certainly affecting Cuba more profoundly. Income is, it is what it is. It is a communist country. So things have not been good at their best time, right?
Right.
And so there's that. We saw long fuel lines. So there's a fuel shortage. Why I didn't go to any stores while I was there, but a member of our team that was with us went to a shopping area in the city we were headquartered in, and saw in a lot of stores shelves that were, for the most part, bare.
Yeah.
So even if you had the money,
yeah, you can.
There's nothing.
What is there to buy?
What is there to buy? Yeah.
one individual who lived in a different province than what we were in said that in the province they live, an adjoining province, there's no bread in that province. That's what they said.
Yeah.
So things are desperate there.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit of, so the province you were in, so what is the, how far away is that from Havana?
Yeah.
And because my suspicion is maybe in Havana things are a little bit better in the sense that, that's where the top guys live maybe. So it's a little better there. But certainly all the surrounding areas, so the little, villages, far from Havana aren't doing as well. Is that possible?
Right, exactly. Driving wise, we were about 6 hours east of Havana.
Okay.
We were in the Ciego de Avila province,
Okay.
which is north central
Right.
Cuba. We stayed at a hotel in the city, Ciego de Avila.
Okay.
Population somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000, so it's a decent sized
Okay,
city.
yeah, that's pretty big, yeah.
Get outside the city, then you're looking at really small towns and villages. So that's where we were focused, was in that province. And our team, there were 14 of us that went down together, and we divided into 3 teams. And the first 2 days we did a pastor's conference with Methodist pastors in that province that came to us. So we spent a couple of days with them doing some teaching and praying together, building relationship. And then over a 2-day period, we visited all 24 churches in that province.
Wow.
So we divided up in 3 teams. So we hit 4 churches a day and met pastors there and their leaders. And we gave financial relief to them. And it's just tremendous to them. And really, in a lot of ways, the trip couldn't have come at a better time for those people to receive that relief, you know.
Sure.
And
Well, does they experience sort of the trickle down in a sense if their congregation is struggling and does not have funds even to live, cannot find food, and so the congregation doesn't have as much to give to the church, so the church begins to
Sure.
struggle from a financial
Sure.
perspective and what's needed sort of to keep the lights
Yeah.
on.
yeah, exactly. And funny you say that. They're having trouble keeping the lights on down there because just about every day that we were there, we didn't see it in Havana, but on like Monday through Friday, just about every day the electricity went off for a period of time. And that's been happening for a while down there. And so that makes it challenging. That's one more issue in this already tough situation.
Absolutely.
And so, but yeah, so we were able to get there. We went there under a religious workers visa. So they know we are there to do
Right.
religious work, and which is great. That way you're not having to look over your shoulder, right? And because you don't want to get in hot water with the government while you're down there, particularly as an American citizen.
Of course, exactly.
And but at night, for those 2 nights when we were visiting congregations, team members would take turns preaching from the pulpit, and then also praying with the people. And so I was able to do that as well. And here's the thing, you know, we think, you know, we're planning this trip and, you know, going down to bless people, and you realize it fits into a much larger plan that there are things that happen that timing-wise, you just know this was God's plan. This was God's plan. Here's an example. One church had dug a well, but they didn't have the money to buy a pump. So they kind of dug the well in faith, if you would.
Yep.
And they were praying for the provision of an electric pump. And that church was one of the churches we visited, and they got the money they needed to purchase the pump.
Wow.
You know? So
That's amazing.
Great thing.
Well, and it just
Yeah,
goes to show you
that's-
also the great faith that remains in the people of Cuba to say,
Yeah.
God will, if I dig this well, God will provide
Yeah.
the pump. I don't know how, I don't know when, but he will provide the pump, and to see that faithfulness rewarded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, and that was part of. I mean, that was part of what I was curious about. In other words, the faith that these people have.
Yeah.
I mean, here you are. You're living in a communist country, which we already know they're anti. I mean, they're obviously anti-faith.
They may not ban faith anymore, but they certainly don't encourage
They
it.
certainly don't encourage it. So that you have all these people. So how? I mean. Are these, is that growing? Is it declining, shrinking as far as the congregations are concerned? Are they growing in faith, or do you feel like they're kind of waning out a little bit?
They are most definitely growing.
Yeah.
They are most definitely growing.
Not surprised.
I can't speak for all of the expressions of Christianity there. I certainly know with the church that we work with, the Methodist Church of Cuba, it is most definitely growing. In fact, among the Protestant groups in Cuba, it is the fastest growing church in Cuba. And I go down to bless them. I'm come away. I'm the one that's blessed. Because the faith and commitment these of people, I so admire them. And I've said this before, I say it again. I meet people down there, I don't feel worthy to wash their feet, you know, because they have stood firm, and it's their faith that has sustained them, and they sustain one another. So Christian community there tends to be very strong. It has to be.
Right.
And And so that is inspirational to see and experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it is growing. It
Yeah.
is growing. Part of the challenge, though, is young people are leaving that country because they don't see much future.
Sure.
You know, and so that's impacting things more than just the church, obviously. I had one pastor tell me that they've had 10 people who were leaders in their church who have left the country now. So boom, that's a hit.
So when you say leave their country, how did they escape or leave the country? Because
I'm not sure about that.
Because I mean,
don't know if
I
they-
don't remember anybody
I don't
saying,
know if
I'm going
they-
to go to United States. Okay, go ahead.
If they got to Nicaragua or
Okay.
Mexico and then came over the border,
Okay.
or maybe they did it the old-fashioned way and got a boat together and
Yeah.
got to the shores. I did find out, I found this out when I got back, that somebody down there, there was an old crop dusting plane. They stole that plane and flew out of the country. I'm sure they were flying very low to the water as they went. But, you know,
You do
if
what
I was
you
in
need.
his shoes, I may do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
but for those who choose to stay, and of course not everybody can leave, you know, that's not going to happen. And but those who choose to stay and hold to the faith, they have a lot to teach us here in America about the importance of faith in our lives.
No doubt about it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no doubt.
Oh,
No doubt.
absolutely. Well, just even just you think about it, what you mentioned at the beginning with supply chain, and we looked at supply chain issue in America as things are more expensive. It takes me, instead of getting my Amazon package in a day, it's like, oh, Amazon is late. It's coming in 5 days. Supply chain issues, And then you look at Cuba and you realize, and this happened when Soviet Union went under as well, right?
Right.
When they did a supply chain issue, there is
no bread.
not enough food.
Yeah.
You can't get gas. Gas isn't $5. Gas might as well be infinitely expensive, because if you're sitting on a gas line and you can't get gas at any price, the price is basically infinity.
Exactly.
There is no price
Right.
at which you can get gas.
Right,
and
right,
they
right.
struggle with things so much more than we do, and yet they then turn and say, well, this, rather than this causing them to doubt God, instead they turn to Him more and say, all right, I cannot get food, the electricity goes out all the time, I can't get gas, I'm still going to dig a well, even though I actually have no money to even get water out of this well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just, you wonder, you sit there and say, is there faith like that in America, at this point, given how often we complain, right? So we would say, oh, things are more expensive. That's okay. God will provide for me. It just goes to show you that the level of faith does not rely on your economic situation. It can be as bad as it is. And in some ways, maybe that
Sometimes I
gives
think
their
that's the case.
faith
Yeah,
stronger, because that's all they have left to
Yeah.
cling to.
Yeah, I saw something down there I'd never seen before in my trips down. It was the day we were going back to the airport, the Jose Marti Airport, which has been upgraded, by the way. I was like, am I in the same airport here? Yeah, before it was pretty dismal. So they have done a major upgrade of the airport. Well, okay, great. But we were driving on the bus to the airport, stopped at a red light, and we took off. And I just kind of glanced to my right, just looking around, and I saw something. I was a bit stunned when I saw it, to be quite honest with you. Of course, down there, okay, if you're going to hold to the Christian faith and preach the gospel and this and that and the other, you do it in the church building,
Yeah.
but not on the street, right? Yeah, that's illegal.
Yeah.
And you get arrested for that. And I turned to my right, and here was a man standing on a street corner. And it was an elevated sidewalk, so there were stairs. And there was this large crowd of people standing in the street, listening to him. He had a Bible in his hand, and he was most obviously preaching.
Wow.
I was like, that is a bold brother right there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a bold brother right there. So,
That's a descendant of the apostles
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Willing to die for your faith. Yeah.
Exactly. It's an apostolic faith that you see there. I like to say to people, when I go to Cuba, it is like stepping into the book of Acts in the New Testament. It really is. It really is.
Which is, it is, because you have a government there that is if not actively persecuting you,
Right.
is certainly discouraging you, quietly persecuting you, putting the pressure, much like the Roman government did, like, you should not be doing this, and yet they go out and do
Yeah.
it nonetheless.
Yeah. One thing that was very exciting, the day before we left, so that Saturday, down there in the Methodist Church of Cuba, they will do these mass baptism events. Our friend Bob Aller.
Yes, he painted one.
Yeah.
He won-
And in fact, he presented a painting to the bishop while we were down there of a mass baptism event down there. And so we got to take part in one of those. And this was in the city. It wasn't at the ocean. I would wish it had been at the ocean. And but we saw 109 new believers be baptized that day.
Wow.
Mass baptism. It was a lot of people there, large gathering.
That's
It was at the
incredible.
facilities
Yeah.
on the property of a church. Yeah. So,
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yes,
That
it
really
is.
is.
It really is.
So,
Well, and to see that, I'm almost wondering, in many ways, it's encouraging to sort of see that boldness, both in the perspective, because I mean, probably 20 years ago, you would not have been able to go to Cuba and sense that there were people who were ready to end communism. Like if they thought it was like
They kept it to themselves.
kept
Yeah.
it to themselves, right?
Yeah.
So that boldness to say this, almost like you saw towards the end of the Soviet Union, but the boldness to say this need for people, some people to say this is ending. Like in other words, there are cracks in the foundation, and this needs to end. And that's maybe it appears now as greater division, because of course you're always going to have the hardliners, the communists that are there, right?
Right.
But now you begin to see people being a little more willing to say this. I'm ready for this to end. I'm ready for this to end in my lifetime, instead of just saying, well, it'll never end in my lifetime, so I won't say anything.
right. For
Yeah,
sure,
it's
for
just
sure.
it's kind of difficult though. I mean, you can believe that, but what's going to happen? How's
I
it going to
know.
end? I mean, it's
I
just
know.
so the faith is unbelievable.
Oh, it's
So
gotta happen.
I mean, and that's why having the kind of faith that they have, with God is so important.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. You think back in our lifetimes with the collapse of the Soviet Union, there is no question that the Christian faith played a major role in that. Pope John Paul II.
Exactly.
And
Huge.
and
He was
his
instrumental.
influence,
Yeah.
tremendous influence in that. And I think what I think is, because what you see happening there in the church in Cuba, and again, it's not just with the Methodist Church, the others, and that it is growing. I think what's up, I think that it's laying a spiritual foundation for the rebirth of that nation. Because sooner or later, communism is going to collapse, and it's going to come down. I pray we see that in our lifetime.
Same here.
So do I.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Same here. But you're so right. It's the spiritual foundation that needs to be in place for that to happen. It's what was there in Eastern Europe that made all the cracks.
That's right. Yeah.
So at first they were underground. No one even knew they were institutionals. Like the institutional church. At least I don't know about the Protestant ones, but the institutional Catholic Church, like in Poland, had been driven so deep underground,
Yeah.
no one even knew that there was anything left.
Right.
And then in the latter half of the 20th century, right, people are like, no, wait, it's big. It was just so deep. They had done such a good job meeting in people's homes, hiding, that then when it started to emerge, people said, no, wait a second. It not only has it survived, it has actually thrived despite this persecution. And then you start to get little rebellions here and there, especially in Poland because of Pope John Paul II, but it's amazing how that faith, you can drive it. They can drive it as deep as they want underground, but it is always still there because the
Exactly.
people keep it alive.
There's an old saying, I don't know who came up with it. I wish I could claim credit for it, but I can't. But there's an old saying, the church is an anvil that has worn out many a hammer. And
Yes.
that's the truth. That's the truth.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that's the case. I mean, the only slight difference is you had a lot of leaders back then, very strong leaders that helped in changing that. And we need those leaders again around the globe, because it's hard for the people themselves to change it. You need the leaders. You need leaders in different countries to be able to say, hey, it's time for this to change.
Right, right. Yeah, and the bishop of the church down there, Methodist Church, his name is Ricardo Pereira. I cannot begin to tell you how much respect I have for this man. His faith and his commitment and the price he has paid is tremendous. And when you see that, you just realize you cannot defeat a man like that. You just can't.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like this. Even if you threaten him with death, he can say, "What are you going to do? Threaten me with heaven?"
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, when you have that level of faith, right? Death is not your defeat. I mean, in many ways, it's your victory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Pastor, this has been so
Absolutely.
inspiring.
Thank you so
I
much.
can't thank you enough
Yeah.
for coming back on and sharing with us.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
thank
what
you
you-
for
what
the
you
work
saw
you do.
down there.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
To
Thank
be able
you
to
so
help those
much.
people.
It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
It's much appreciated. If people want to support what you're doing, support Mission Charlottesville, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they could go to our website, missioncharlottesville.org.
Okay.
They could also find us through our Facebook page under Mission Charlottesville. They can email me at missioncharlottesville@gmail.com.
Okay.
And if people have interest in giving directly to help support the Methodist Church of Cuba, for example, there are ways you can give that support legally, and in ways are reliable. I can very much point people to that.
That's
And
fantastic.
they can, to help purchase medicines for the poor in Cuba. There's a way to do that.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. That's
So
wonderful.
definitely, I would
Yeah.
really encourage people to reach out
Yeah,
and do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they have much to teach us spiritually, but they need our support
Exactly.
in economic matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for having me.
Appreciate it.
No,
Yeah.
it's a
Thank
pleasure.
you
Great
so
to be with you.
Always a pleasure.
here.
And just a couple shout outs here. Mary Lindsay, thanks for watching the show. Katie Pearl, watching the show this morning, another descendant of another Cuban American,
That's
like
right.
us, descendant from Cubans. Kathy Day watching the show this morning. Thank you all so much for watching this morning. And just fantastic group of guests that we had this
Absolutely.
morning. I learned so much and just was inspired in so many ways. Definitely want to encourage people to support them all.
All of them, yeah,
in
yeah.
what they do. Tricia Dodo from Baby Bridge, Tricia Del Sorbo Pay from Central Virginia Canine Academy, of course, Pastor David Ford from Mission Charlottesville. I just enjoyed it so much with you.
Inspiring.
Thanks
It's been
for-
an inspiring day.
It has. It
really
has.
has.
Thanks for
Good morning.
co-hosting with me.
Thank you so
this
much for
morning.
having me.
Of course, next week, some more great guests. We're going to be joined by Susan from Tate Bloom, as well as Kenny Flowers and Deontay Anderson from Flowers Anderson Electric. So 2 more local small businesses, local entrepreneurs are going to be joining us next week. As always, big thank you to the I Love Seville Network, to Judah behind the camera, doing his work, his fantastic work with 3 segments
His
today.
magic. Doing his magic.
Working his magic. Of course, definitely continue to want to encourage people. Virginia Film Festival this weekend. So be sure to go out and enjoy that, as well as the Community Investment Collaborative CIC 10 anniversary plus alumni reunion. Great event going on this Saturday at 5 p.m. at It's Art Park. You can get tickets at www.cicville.org/CIC10. Very easy. So the CIC number 10. So definitely would encourage people to check those community events out this weekend. As always, a big thank you to Emergent Financial Services for presenting our show today, as well as our partners at Credit Sirius Insurance, at Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash, at the Gym Seville, of course, Castle Hill Cider, and Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thank you so much thank you, David, for co-hosting. That's Nick, as always, for getting our fantastic guests on
Absolutely,
the
yes.
show today.
Yeah. Does a great job.
He does a wonderful task there, really putting all this together. And of course, thank you, our audience. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for your wonderful comments and questions that you send us. Always, we wouldn't be here
True.
without you watching the show. So really encourage you to continue to send us any questions, comments, people you think we should feature on this show. We are always happy to do that. As we always say, there's no cost for people to come on today, mañana.
And don't forget to like and share.
There you go. See, I gave you an opportunity. I didn't say it that time. This way you can jump in.
You kind of looked at
and
me and said, I got to say something.
Don't forget to like and share. Send any comments you may have, and check us out across all the platforms that you can find us. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. But until that time, as we always say on the show, hasta mañana. All righty, thank you.